Rome. How do we make sense of a place like this? Is it a city? Is it a city-state? Is it an empire? Is Rome the Mediterranean? Is it an idea? Is it a democracy? Is it a republic? Is it a monarchy? Kind of a constitutional imperialist system? When there is no Rome in Rome, somehow it still continues to be Rome. Russia will consider itself to be the continuation of Rome. The Holy Roman Empire and present-day Germany will consider it to be the continuation of Rome. How do we conceive of something like this? This is one of the challenges when we talk about Rome. We are talking about a nearly 1,000 years of history. It will dominate every aspect of Western society and world. It will be the basis from which Western society looks to. How do we see these people? And probably one of the best ways to do that through the city that tells us the most. Pompeii. Now, most of you know the story of Pompeii. Mount Vesuvius, a volcano 5 miles away in 79 AD, will blow its stack. A plume of ash will be covered in the air. A protoplastic surge will come over the side and wipe out anybody who was in the city who had not already fled. And then pumice and ash will settle on the city, burying it in this amazing time capsule. We have streets, we have graffiti, we have art, a clue into kind of the brothels that are there. This is a plan of the Stabian Baths in Pompeii. It's called the Stabian Baths because it's on the road to Stabia, another city, which was also buried, by the way. And if we look at these baths, the closer we look, the more we may get an insight. One thing we will notice is that there's this big open area in the center, the palestra or the exercise yard, that clearly indicates to us that these people are very interested in fitness. Now, that doesn't mean they're actually in shape. I'm not in shape, but I live near like 5 different Gold's gyms. And so, honestly, when people look at this area in the future, they may say, wow, these are really fit people. No, we weren't. But we cared about our appearance and how we looked. Also, the fact that these baths even existed shows that these are people who put a premium on cleanliness, that that's something that matters. And you may think, well, of course they do, except for the fact that that's not going to be the case in the medieval age. We'll get to the plague. But we also see this entire back system, these rooms in the back, which are the women's areas. Sure, they are much less elaborate than what you see for the men, which indicates that this is a male-based society, and I don't think that's going to surprise anyone, but what's worth noting is that they're actually there. That this is a public facility that people can come in and go to. And the fact that they even exist says something about Roman society. That women were out and an active part of everyday life. Otherwise, this significant portion of the facility would not be for them. So this is not a culture where women are kept at home. Another thing, we have these steam rooms where the water boils up and then steam rises through this, where you have a elevated metal hot water container that is being heated by a constant fire underneath and is going to, through osmosis, actually heat along the path to the distant pools. So the closer the pools are, the hotter it's going to be. The farther they are, the colder it's going to be. This is an amazing, elaborate, technical, scientific-based system, which requires not only a huge infrastructure to build, but requires constant, intense maintenance by people. And all of this is provided at the expense of the state. The Roman government has enough money to provide these resources open to everyone. Now, you're right, most of the people who are here are wealthy senators and everybody else, but that's because they have the time to go. I don't know about you, but I have to work for a living and I can't spend every day at the spa. We get to see here a couple things. One, the great wealth that is Rome. Two, the maybe more fluid gender roles that exist. Three, their desire and interest in cleanliness and the personal perception and view. But also, I've noticed these rooms kind of ringing the outside. These are actually stores. And what we know is they were all full. And that tells you something very powerful. Well, we know businesses aren't going to set up where there is no business, which means either the Stabian Baths were a spot where there is a lot and lot of foot traffic, or it is in the center of town. This shows the centrality of this aspect of their society. But let's move on, shall we? Because one thing that's worth noting when we look at these people and we start to look at some of these items, we see some of these columns being very Greek-like. By the way, this is a bath in England. The architecture, or these rooms, are Greek in terms of their geometric shape, yet they are draped in pillows in bright colors, much more like the Orient. And by the way, in this age, Orient means Mesopotamia, Babylon. But maybe this story of Rome is a little more complicated. We go to the History Channel. We have this thing about the 10 innovations that built Rome. But when we look at those 10 innovations, they're interesting. The aqueducts, this great kind of invention of bringing water into cities, this was actually done and copied, and engineers were brought from the Nabateans in present-day Jordan. If you've seen Petra or the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where they're going through the end and there's this carving into a mountain. That's one of 280 of those in Petra. Petra is one of the few places that actually meets expectations, along with Machu Picchu and the Grand Canyon. Concrete. We claim they built concrete, but we know in Crete and Cyprus they've been using concrete since 800. Newspapers, but we know for a fact that newspapers had been in the Han Dynasty since 202, not the 59 BC that we start seeing them here. We see the welfare system, and as this as a invention of the Romans, but when we look at the structure, it is a direct copy of the poor tithe done by Jewish traditions. They invented bound books, except Caesar actually went to the Library of Alexandria, saw bound books, and then brought that technology back to Rome. So I don't understand how Rome invented that. Roads and highways, that we think of these great roads that go all over Europe and are the source of probably constant invasions into England and Northern Europe due to these roads. But in ancient Mesopotamia in 4000 BC had stone paved roads. England will have corridor roads in 4000 BC. India in 3000 BC will have brick paved roads. And the road system will be paralleled in size by that of Darius that he built across the great Persian Empire. Although his was not paved, the system was just as elaborate. This is getting redundant, but the Roman arches are actually Greek. The Roman gods are actually Greek. The Roman alphabet is actually Greek. The Julian calendar, they claim that they invented the 12-month calendar, except the ancient Sumerians used a 12-month calendar. The 12 tables that they invented laws. We looked at Hammurabi's code. I'm just going to leave it there. Caesarean, that's a big thing, right? Caesar was actually ripped from his mother's belly as a Caesarean. Therefore, they invented this kind of thing, except for the fact that we know they were doing it in Babylonian and Jewish traditions long before this. The Chinese had been doing Caesareans as early as 1000, and by 320 BC, 250 years before this, people in India had figured out how to do this and actually save the mom in the process. Here's the thing about Rome. We get a clue into their culture, their society, their opulence, the money, their advancements and creations of the city, although most focused on Rome itself. The one thing we need to remember is none of it was theirs. They are a culture of borrowers. They are people who actually go invade other areas, intentionally capture the greatest, best minds of those areas, bring them back to Rome, enslave them, by the way, and force them to build their things. All the great architectural buildings, all the great scientific triumphs of Rome, even some of the most renowned philosophers are all slaves taken from other parts of Rome. Romans invent nothing. Romans form nothing. Romans come up with nothing. Their success is in their ability to adopt what everybody else does and use the best of it. Now, does that make them shams and frauds, or does that make them a blend of everything that came before? I leave that up to you.